Hey, it's Ollie, and if you are an introvert, then this video is for you, because, believe it or not, and people often don't believe this, I actually consider myself to be a massive introvert. And it's not always obvious, because doing what I do, being on camera, podcasting, talks, things like that, I'm often I have to be kind of high energy, a little bit in your face, but that's not actually the real me, or at least not all of the time. And I'll explain that in the first tip. So in this video, what I'm going to do is give you 8 tips, 8 things that I believe, based on my experience, and it is a personal experience, but whatever, 8 things that I think every introvert needs to know about learning languages. So the first thing of all is that being an introvert means different things to different people. You can be introverted and outgoing. That's my case, right? I'm actually really outgoing and I draw energy from social interactions. I need to be around people, but I also need to have time by myself to recharge. And when I need that time to recharge, I'm gone. You can't keep me there, all right? So that's what it means for me to be an introvert. I need both interaction with people, but also time to recharge. And I really need that time by myself. In just the same way as you can be extroverted and shy. It's a big kind of spectrum of different ways of being. Introversion is, and there's no such thing as neat boxes that we all fit in. So the reason this is important is because when you understand how you work and how you operate as a person, you're able to turn that into a strength and an advantage, rather than do what I did for a long time, which is wonder, well, Ollie, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, why don't you like doing this? Why can't you stay here for longer? When you understand it, you can turn it into strengths. Okay, so being introverted means different things to different people. Thing number 2, there's no rush to start speaking. As an introvert, you may not enjoy speaking as much, or only in certain situations, but you may feel under a fair bit of pressure to actually speak, whether that's in your language class, where the teacher's getting you to speak all the time, whether it's people on the internet who are telling you, oh, you have to be speaking all the time, right from the beginning, whether that's whatever, a social situation that's forcing you to speak. You might know that speaking is not natural for you. So it's important for you to know that you don't have to start speaking at the beginning. Speaking can wait a long time. You can wait months, even years. And the big advantage of delaying speaking and focusing instead on learning the language by yourself is that when you do come to speak, by that point, you already know the language. You have a good vocabulary. You understand the grammar. You can understand people when they talk, which means you're going to have a much happier time of speaking, and it's going to be much more meaningful, which for you as an introvert is important. It's very different from the experience of trying to speak right at the beginning, when you just don't know anything, and the only thing you can hope to do is something very transactional. Get what you want, order the beer at the bar, buy your train ticket. It's useful if you're abroad. It's not very practical. It's not very It's practical. It's not very meaningful. So don't be afraid to not speak for quite some time. Number 3, learning a language does not mean talking to strangers. For me personally, there's nothing I hate more than practicing a new language with strangers on the street. I hate it. It's high pressure. It's socially awkward. It's kind of difficult to talk about anything meaningful anyway when you're interrupting somebody's day, and they are not there to help you practice. So I hate talking to strangers. And but again, I used to think there was something wrong with me, because I love traveling. So I'd go to other countries and I'd feel, I should be talking to everybody all the time. So what's wrong with me that I don't want to do that? Well, the truth is that learning a language does not mean talking to strangers all the time. Instead, what I realized for me, that my secret for learning language, my strength, lay not in always just going out and talking to random people all the time, but instead in creating safe, controlled speaking environments. And what that means is having a small number of people who you can meet with, and you feel comfortable and safe experimenting, making mistakes, talking about all kinds of different things with no time pressure, no judgment, anything like that. My friend Richard calls this a safe person to practice with. So a safe person in a safe speaking environment, whatever you want to call it, basically means someone that you can practice with where you feel comfortable just talking. All right. And I learned about myself that I do best when I practice a language in that safe environment. And that means that if I use that as my basis for learning languages, then I don't care about having to go and practice with people on the street, because I know I've got people who I can practice with. I feel more comfortable, I can manage my energy better, and it's just much more fun because it's meaningful. The whole thing is meaningful. And so as a result of this, number 5 is to focus on a few strong relationships instead of meeting lots and lots of random people. So there are people out there, I have friends like this, who their whole language strategy is basically always be talking to as many people as possible and learn the language that way. And that's great for them. It works. They're very extroverted. For me, it doesn't work like that. I prefer instead cultivating some very strong relationships with a small number of people, 2, 3, 4 people, and I'll spend most of my speaking time just with those people. I like it because I get to know them, and the dynamic is good, and I can practice speaking that way. Again, these are language tutors, language partners, can be friends, whoever. But I always have a strategy of focusing on a few core relationships, which again means that I don't care then about practicing with every person I meet on the street. Some more tactical stuff now. Number 6, master common greetings. For introverts, at least for me, one of the hardest points about speaking is that first moment when you first go and speak to someone, whether you're talking to a stranger, asking for something in a shop, maybe a friend introduces you all of a sudden when you weren't expecting it, and you have to suddenly perform in the language, right? It's that first moment that's quite hard. So one way that you can really give yourself a confidence boost and just make the whole thing less intense and less difficult for yourself is to spend a lot of time learning and mastering common greetings. So, that's just the real simple, at a basic level, it's the hi, how are you? Fine, thanks. Those kind of patterns. All basic social interactions work with patterns, and you can learn the words and phrases you need for those and practice them. And if you do that, you're going to feel a lot more confident actually taking advantage of the moments when you do have the opportunity to practice the language. All right, so learn and master common greetings and common interactions in the language. So the 7th thing in our list is to focus on input-based methods. This relates to the idea from earlier that you don't have to start speaking if you don't want to. But if you don't start speaking, then what do you do instead? Well, you focus on learning the language through input-based methods. And what that means is learning through reading and listening. Now, the reason this is so powerful is that you don't have to be in a class. You don't have to be speaking with anybody. You don't have to be out traveling, talking to people. With input-based learning, you can do it by yourself. And you can always be learning, taking advantage of every free moment that you have. And this is particularly important for introverts because as an introvert, you probably want to spend a fair amount of time by yourself. So you don't have to wait till Tuesday evening at 7 for your regular language class. If you're following an input-based method, like the story learning courses that I create, my books and things like that, is that you can always be learning by yourself. And again, the reason this is so effective is because as you're learning, you're building up this knowledge of the language so that when you're ready to speak later, when you feel comfortable to start speaking, at whatever point that might be, after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, you've already built up this big body of knowledge that is going to make speaking so much more comfortable. All right, then last but not least, number 8, introverts have superpowers. Extroverts, it's not all sunshine. Extroverts need to be around people all the time. In general, I'm generalizing, but this is the characteristic of extroverts, that they need to be around people. They often have a hard time being by themselves, being alone. And guess what? That makes it really hard to sit and study. So as an introvert, you have certain characteristics which other people don't have, which you can see as a weakness if you want, or you can flip it on its head and say, right, this is a strength. How can I turn this into a strength? When you discover what your strengths are as an introvert and you lean into them as a strategy for language learning, then this is how you're going to be able to get rid of anxiety and doubts and really focus on what works for you. You'll learn languages faster, you'll enjoy it more across the board, and just have a better time, a better experience of life learning languages. So there we go. Let's have a quick recap of what these were. Number 1, being an introvert means different things to different people. Number 2, there is no rush to start speaking. Number 3, learning a language doesn't mean talking to strangers. Number 4, create safe speaking environments. Number 5, focus on a few strong relationships instead of meeting lots of random people. Number 6, learn and practice common greetings. Number 7, focused on input-based methods. And then lastly, number 8, introverts have superpowers. So think carefully, what is yours? What is your superpower as an introvert? And when you know what it is, leave me a comment below and tell me. I'd love to see what it is for you. Thanks so much. See you back in the next video.